Do you know people who are very selfless and can completely devote themselves to others, with whom you sometimes have the feeling they might know better than you what is good for you? Or are you yourself someone who cares more for others than for yourself? The psychological key to understanding these character traits can be found in the tradition of Jungian psychology, in the archetype of the martyr. The martyr and the self-defeating personality disorder in 10 points. Point 1. What makes the martyr archetype tick? The main personality trait of the martyr is his selflessness. He often asks himself what he can do for others and how he can give even more. The archetypal martyr belongs to the melancholic temperament. His focus is on the needs of his fellow human beings. He tends to be an introvert who likes to give a lot of effort to the needs of other people or a cause. He does not consider himself that important. At the same time, his basic needs are status, appreciation and recognition. For example, he wants to be considered a good person, as well as to know that his commitment is valued and appreciated, although he would not admit or claim it out of modesty. Appreciation can also come in symbolic form. For example, if he is dedicated to a higher cause and thereby receives gratitude and value, such as a monk or a nun for serving God. Or he may earn appreciation by being involved in environmental protection, or because he successfully saved animals that appeared to be grateful to him. Point 2. His strengths. The virtues of the martyr archetype are humility and gratitude. He restrains himself to devote himself to someone or something. Point 3. His weaknesses. Since the martyr is not so important or valuable in his own eyes, he may suffer from feelings of inferiority which can lead to self-punishment and self-harm. Point 4. How to recognize the martyr archetype. You can recognize the martyr very well by his modesty. Often you can also recognize him by the fact that he puts himself in the service of a higher cause. This could be, for example, political, religious, social, ecological, or health issues. You may also recognize the martyr by the fact that he often seems to know better than others what they need. He is always fully engaged and committed to what he thinks is best for others. However, this can lead to an unpleasant impression of feelings, because a good intention does not necessarily lead to a good result. By the way, you will learn how to deal with this in point 9, so stay tuned. The martyr can be confused with the archetype of the lover, because they both focus on their fellow human beings and the fulfillment of their needs. In contrast to the martyr, whose pathological expression is the self-defeating personality disorder, the pathological form of the lover is the dependent personality disorder. Point 5. How does a martyr react in conflict situations? The defense mechanism of the martyr archetype is autoaggression. That means when overwhelmed, he directs his aggressive impulses against himself instead towards the person from whom the conflict originates, because he does not want to endanger the good relationship with this person. The altruistic rejection of desires is also a defense mechanism of the martyr. Here he represses his desires and needs in order not to appear selfish. Point 6. The martyr in mythology. The archetype of the martyr, like all personality archetypes, is a basic pattern of human experience. We find this archetype in many legends and fairy tales. For example, we find the suffering Job in biblical Jewish mythology. God rewarded Job's faithfulness because in all his suffering, poverty and grief, he nevertheless remained faithful to his God. In Christian mythology, we find the crucified Jesus who died for the sins of others according to the Christian faith. In Norse mythology, Balder or Baldur corresponds to the martyr archetype. He is the most peaceful and pure of the Norse gods. Through a trick of Loki, he is killed by his brother Hoder with a mistletoe spear. In modern myths, we find the martyr archetype as well. In the series Game of Thrones, Jon Snow, Brienne of Tarth and Ned Stark are equivalents of the martyr. For example, Brienne of Tarth always puts herself in the service of a person who corresponds to her ideals and values. First it was Renly Baratheon, then Catelyn Stark and finally Sansa Stark.
Then I am yours, my lady. I will shield your back and give my life for yours if it comes to that. I swear it by the old gods and the new. Lady Sansa, I offer my services once again. I will shield your back and keep your counsel and give my life for yours if need be. I swear it by the old gods and the new.
In Harry Potter, Dobby the house elf is a good example of the martyr archetype.
But this isn't a great time for me to have a house elf in my bedroom.
Oh, yes, sir. Dobby understands. It's just that Dobby has come to tell you it is difficult, sir. Dobby wonders where to begin.
Why don't you sit down?
Sit down. Sit down.
Dobby, shush, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend you or anything.
Offend Dobby? Dobby has heard of your greatness, sir, but never has he been asked to sit down by a wizard like an equal.
You can't have met many decent wizards, then.
No, I haven't. That was an awful thing to say. Dobby!
Stop!
In Star Wars, we find Vice Admiral Emmeline Holdo sacrificing herself against the First Order during a suicide mission. In Lord of the Rings, it is the hobbit Frodo Baggins who becomes the ring bearer and undertakes a very dangerous journey to destroy the ring in the fires of Mount Doom in Mordor, in order to save Middle-earth from Sauron's reign of terror.
How do you go on when in your heart you begin to understand? There is no going back. There are some things that time cannot mend.
This is it.
Some hurts that go too deep.
If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been.
That have taken hold.
I will take the ring to Mordor.
Point 7. The Martyr and the Hero's Journey. In the mythological success structure of the hero's journey, the hero needs the skill of the martyr to successfully pass through the 6th stage. In this stage, the hero accepts his new status with humility and dedication and thus can fully devote himself to a higher purpose. You can learn more about this stage of the hero's journey in our video series on the hero's journey, link in the description. Point 8. How can you recognize a self-defeating personality disorder? We have already explained to you many characteristics that describe the personality archetype of the martyr, and so you should be able to recognize it. Often, however, it is even easier to perceive the pathological manifestation, since its features are usually more pronounced and accordingly stand out negatively. In the ICD-10, the self-defeating personality disorder is not classified. In the broadest sense, it can be assigned to the masochistic, but this is rather a disorder of sexual preference. In the American Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM-5, the characteristics of the self-defeating personality disorder are described as follows. A pervasive pattern of self-defeating behavior that begins in early adulthood and is present in a variety of contexts. The person may often avoid or undermine pleasant experiences, be attracted to situations or relationships in which he or she will suffer and prevent others from helping him or her, as indicated by at least 5 of the following points. Point 1. Chooses people and situations that lead to disappointment, failure or mistreatment, even when better options are clearly available. Point 2. Rejects or makes ineffective the attempts of others to help them. Point 3. Reacts with depression, guilt or behavior that causes pain. For example, an accident after positive personal events, for example, new achievements. Point 4. Incites angry or dismissive responses from others and then feels hurt, defeated or humiliated. For example, makes fun of a spouse in public, provokes an angry response and then feels devastated. Point 5. Rejects opportunities for pleasure or is reluctant to admit that they are enjoying themselves, despite adequate social skills and capacity for pleasure. Point 6. Fails to perform tasks that are critical to their personal goals, even though the person would demonstrably able to do so, for example helps others write papers but is unable to write their own. Point 7. Is not interested in or rejects people who consistently treat them well. Point 8. Undertakes excessive self-sacrifice that is not requested by the intended recipient of the sacrifice. Point 9. The person may often avoid or undermine pleasurable experiences and rejects opportunities for pleasure or is reluctant to acknowledge having a good time. Someone who suffers from self-defeating personality disorder is one of the typical difficult personalities. It is usually quite challenging when your boss, a colleague or spouse or life partner, a parent or child suffers from this personality disorder. So the question arises: how to deal with a balanced or unbalanced martyr? Point 9. It is important to give a martyr recognition, even if they seem to reject it. They willingly sacrifice much of themselves to receive this recognition and appreciation. However, it is important to understand what form of recognition or value a martyr might really desire in a particular case. It could be a small or larger gift, perhaps something practical or idealistic that fits well with the person and actually conveys the value he or she truly desires, or something that a person with a strong martyr character would appreciate and that is arranged for him and his needs and interests without having to be the center of attention himself. Whatever your strategy is, always be aware that it is significant to meet his needs for value and recognition in an appropriate way. To deepen your knowledge of this and all other archetypes, as well as to understand their significance in therapy and coaching, business relationships, professional and private life, you can attend our seminars on personality archetypes. Point 10. How can someone with a self-defeating tendency balance their personality, and how can a balanced martyr enhance their competencies? If a self-defeating person wants to balance their imbalances, or if a well-developed martyr wants to enhance their competencies, or if you want to balance your inner martyr, it is a good idea to develop the complementary archetype, namely the king within yourself. In contrast to the martyr, the king is oriented towards himself, his needs and interests, and is therefore able to focus on his own advantage. To learn more about the king archetype, watch the video about it in our channel. Do you see yourself as a martyr? Do you know people around you who fit these personality traits? What do you find particularly difficult in dealing with these people? Which well-known real or fictional people with the characteristics of the martyr or those who correspond to a self-defeating personality disorder do you know? We are looking forward to your comments. Also, feel free to write us any questions you have below the video, because we will make a video at the end of the series answering these questions. If you haven't done already, like and share this video, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell to be always up to date. Thanks for watching and see you soon!